So a very good morning and welcome back to another video. Now, have you ever wondered what the difference between a pro camera is and a beginner camera is? Well, today we're going to find out. So we've got a Canon 5D Mark III with a 16 to 35mm f2.8L lens on it. Very much what you would consider a pro level setup. And on the other hand, we have a Canon 400D with the EFS 10 to 18mm STM lens on it. Something that you would consider to be a beginner setup. So let's go find out what is the difference between this and this, aside from the cost. All right, so the plan for the day, we're going to take a series of photographs, but we're going to take each one twice. So we're going to take one with the 5D Mark III, and then we're going to swap cameras over and we're going to take another photograph, the same photograph with the Canon 400D. So first up, this is the Canon 5D with a 16 to 35mm f2.8 lens. What we've got all these rocks that are sort of creeping out into the sea. We've got a little one just poking out at the end here. You see that over there, we're going to use that. This is a bit of a subject. We'll have all the waves and everything just crashing about. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get this camera set up, figure out some settings, take the photograph, swap the cameras over, and then we'll take it again. All right, so the spot we're currently in, it's a little bit sketchy. The tide is coming in and the water's starting to get quite high around here. So we're just going to hurry up and get this one done. So the first photograph, let's have a look, F11, I think we'll get it around a second. We've got F11, an eighth of a second, and ISO 100. So I'm going to use a 2-second timer, and I've focused on the singular little rock that I showed you a little bit of video of earlier on. So there's that photograph taken. Now I'm going to swap cameras. I'm going to throw the 400D on, and I'm going to show you both shots side by side, and then I will tell you which camera that they were taken with. Okay, so I've switched to the Canon 400D now. One thing that I forgot about this camera, I bought this about a year ago and used it a year ago, and this is the first time that I've used it since. I forgot it doesn't have live view, and what a great tool live view is, so we're having to sort of focus and recompose and do all that sort of nonsense. So just going to double check through the viewfinder that we are good. So the same settings as before, an eighth of a second, F11, ISO 100. This doesn't have a 2-second timer unless you throw the mirror lock up on, which is a pain in the backside, so we have to use a 10-second countdown timer, which takes an age. Okay, so there's that photo. So what I'll do, I'll throw them both side by side on the screen for you to look at. I'm going to try and get the edits and the exposures and the white balance as close as I possibly can, just so it doesn't give it away for the rest of the video. And then your game is to guess which one was taken with which camera, and I'll put the evidence on the screen in a few seconds. So, after 6 months of using a super glued together tripod, I finally got a new tripod. I ordered it about a month ago and it kind of got caught up in a warehouse somewhere due to the Royal Mail strikes, but it's finally here. It's a K&F M1. It's nice. It packs up quite small, so it's quite a small travel tripod, but when it's fully extended, this thing, it is about the same height as me, which is going to be great for the landscape stuff, so I'm not really going to have to worry about a tripod that is too small. I can't think of where to put it down. So the plan now, we're going to head off. Just behind me there are some sea caves, so we're going to head off into the sea caves and hopefully take some nice photographs of them using both the cameras. So what do you think? Let's get in there, let's get stuck in, go find some new compositions in some sea caves before the tide comes in, because it's going to get a bit frisky soon. Alright, so this one I like. It's a big sea cave. You see there's a big archway there, we've got all these pebbles leading up to it. But just through the sea cave, there is that same rock that I was taking a photograph of before, and you can kind of figure it out, so it's right in the middle of the sea cave. So it's kind of framing the cave. So I'm thinking long exposure, flatten all the water out, just get the little rock poking out through the waves, and hopefully one of the cameras will be able to do this. I've had an idea of which one will work best for this, and the other one may surprise me. So let's get some camera set up and take the second photograph. Alright, so we've got this shot lined up now, and first off again we're using the Canon 5D Mark III. Now, I've put the filter holder kit on the front of this camera, but we're just using the polarising filter. You can kind of think of a polarizer as a one-stop filter, and that's just giving me around a second's worth of exposure time in here, and it's also taking some of the glare off of the wet rocks as well. So let's go ahead, we'll take the first photograph. So F11, a 1/6 of a second, an ISO 100, and I focused on the rock that is way right in the middle of this frame, right out in the sea. And let's see how that turned out. That looks okay to me. It's still retaining some of the whiteness in the cliffs and the arch as well. And we're also not overexposing the sky in the background. So let's swap cameras again. Let's put the Canon 400D on with the 10 to 18mm lens and take the same photograph. All right, so we'll put the plastic fantastic on now, the Canon 400D. So we've got the same settings as earlier on, 60th per second, f11, ISO 100. Still using the same filter kit with the polarising filter just to take some of the glare off the rocks. And like I said last time out, we have to use a 10-second timer because I can't for the life of me figure out how to get the 2-second timer on this camera without using the mirror locker. It's a pain in the backside. Alright, so let's take a minute and talk about the spec sheets of both of these cameras. So we're going to start off with the Canon 400D. APS-C size sensor from around 2005, ISO range from 100 to 1600, and I wouldn't really push it past 400 on a bad day. It's not the cleanest of image sensors, I'm going to be honest with you, but I've never really had too much of a problem with that. I've always enjoyed using this when I've taken it out, and I've kind of worked around its limitations on the sensor. But yeah, APS-C 2005, very, very old. 3 frames a second, I believe it is, doing the shooting base mode. So you're not going to use this for sports or wildlife, but for this kind of thing, putting it on a tripod, sticking a super wide angle lens on, such as this 10 to 18mm, and doing some long exposure coastal stuff, it's going to work perfectly fine, and I've never had any problems doing that. The lens on this is 10 to 18, as I've said, variable aperture on this of 4.5 to 5.6, so it's not the fastest lens in the world, but it does come with image stabilisation. The whole setup as a whole, it's very cheap and very plasticky feeling, but that's what you're getting for your money. Like I say, these days, £30 camera with a £150 lens, you're not going to get a well-beaten setup there. But the other end of this, the 5D Mark III, very, very solidly built, and it feels like money. You can feel where your money went on this. It's got magnesium alloy, it's got weather sealing, it's got all of that fun stuff. The lens on the front of this, I should point this out, the field of view that I've chosen for these two lenses is near enough identical, only this one does about an extra 10mm at the long end, but everything that this lens covers, this lens covers. So that's kind of why I'm doing it this way. See, we've got similar focal lengths, but yeah, the lens on this 16 to 35 f2.8, it's not a variable aperture, it's a fixed aperture. So at 16mm, you're still getting the super wide, super fast 2.8, as well as the 35mm as well. The sensor inside of this, full frame, ISO range, I believe it goes up to 12,800 natively, expandable to, I think it's about 102,000. You get a lot more bang for your buck with the ISO range on this, and the cleaner images as well, obviously with the larger sensor gathering more light. So yeah, if you want to go out and explore for the cheap, buy one of these. If you're taking your photographs seriously, buy something like this. But all in all, it's not something that's ever really bothered me. Sensor size, gear, I'm not really one that's too bothered about what I'm using, so yeah. This is my daily driver, and this one is just a little bit of fun, a little bit of cheap fun that I used a year ago. So let's go off and find another photograph to take. Alright, so for this next photograph, we're going to test the dynamic range and or the HDR photo merge abilities of both of these cameras. So we're shooting at the cliffs, which has the sun behind it. As you can see above my head, it is all very, very bright. And that is where the sun is rising, just out there. So we've got these cliffs on this side, we've got the cliffs on the other side, and we've got all of this bedrock leading off, just all sort of pointing towards the end of the cliffs, which is about there. So what we're going to do, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use no filters this time because I kind of want to get some of the waves in this photograph. So we're going to take 3 photos, photo merge them both, and again I'm going to show you the final result from both cameras. So we're going to start off with the Canon 5D. Alright, so first up here is the Canon 5D Mark III. So we've got a base exposure of f11, ISO 100 and a 60th of a second. And what we're going to do, we're going to take 3 photographs one after another, 2 stops either side of this base exposure, and then we're going to photo merge them on the computer when we get home and just see what the final image looks like. So here we go. Alright, so as you can see, I've swapped cameras out. We've now got the Canon 400D on, and in all honesty, I was amazed that this does auto exposure bracketing in the menus. I was half expecting to have to manually go through this and set the exposure times myself. So here we go, same settings as before, 10-second countdown timer as before. This thing takes forever. So once this is taken, I'm going to merge everything together. I'm going to show you both side by side on the screen like I have earlier on in the video, and you can guess which was which. All right, so there we go, just a bit of a camera comparison between a fairly old crop sensor camera and a fairly modern full frame camera. And I hope I was able to prove today that it doesn't really matter what camera you're using, what camera gear you're using, it doesn't matter. As long as you go out there and have fun and take some photographs that you're happy with, that is all that matters. I would have gone out today with either of these cameras and had the same amount of fun, taking exactly the same photographs as I have done, and it wouldn't have bothered me in the slightest. And I hope I was able to prove that to you today a little bit as well. But please let me know down in the comments below what camera you're using. What is your favorite camera? Do you have a preference when it comes to sensor size? Full frame, APS-H, micro four thirds, crop, APS-C, you know what I mean? Any of that. So please let me know what camera you're using, what size sensor you prefer. Do you have a preference? And do you just go out and take photos for the fun of it? So thank you very much for watching. I'm going to wish you a very Merry Christmas, because this will be the last video before Christmas. If you did enjoy it, please do give it a thumbs up, because it really does help the video out and it does bring you viewers to see my content. And if you enjoyed it more than that, there is a subscribe button below me. You can press that and you'll see more nonsense from myself and any of my cameras that I decide to take along with me every single week. So until the next time, I'm going to love you and leave you and say peace and goodbye.